Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you a follow-up video to my book review I just did of How I Got My Shrunken Head, and I just decided to do the TV episode review as well. Like I said in the video before this one, we recently discussed this on the That One Goosebumps podcast. I happened to pick this book and episode to review, and if you want to give it a watch, go over to Brandon Syme's channel. Me, Brandon Syme, Bumps in the Night, Reviewer Beware, and Josh Reviews Inc. reviewed this. I am a new member on the panel, and we are doing Classic 62 stuff. So if you're interested in that, please go check that out. We'd really appreciate it. So anyway, let's get into this episode review. Unlike the book, when I just read the book, and I just rated the book a 3 out of 5, I think this episode is superior to the book. It's one of those situations, it's very rare, where the episode is tremendously better than the book. Just a really well-made episode, and as we'll get into it when I talk about it, it's just really good. I highly recommend this one off the bat before we get into all of this. If you want to watch a pretty good episode, it's not the best, but it's a pretty good episode. I'll try this one. So let's get into the episode. So in the episode, it begins on a dark night. A package arrives at this house on the doorstep, and this kid answers the door and picks up this package, and it says, from Balladora and Aunt Benna, to Mark. So Mark is, of course, the same Mark from the book. So he takes it inside, and he puts it on his bed, and he starts playing this video game, kind of like the book, where he's obsessed with jungle video games and jungle memorabilia, jungle collectibles, artifacts. And you'll see his room is very OCD, almost compulsively decorated in jungle, I guess, memorabilia. And it's very, very overdone, but in a good way. It's very neurotic. I think most people would get a kick out of this room. And then the shrunken head bursts out of the box, and it causes a commotion to Mark. Something completely absent in this episode that you'll find in the book, different in the episode, is that the little sister Jessica is not in this episode. I think for whatever reason, I guess they felt like it doesn't need a sibling in it. But anywho, instead of having a sibling, it has the mom has a boyfriend that's a reoccurring character now. So he has an outburst. His mother and her boyfriend come to the door, and Mark tells her what happens and scares away her boyfriend, and he skirts down the road out into the night in his Mustang, and his mom's all mad, and she comes to Mark's room and says, "Hey, you got to hang up this jungle stuff. This is getting ridiculous." And Mark, goes to bed upset. And then the next morning, Mark gets woken up by his mom, and there's a phone call that rings, and it's from Balladora. And his mom is told, like, "Hey, Aunt Benna wants Mark to come down to Balladora." And at first, his mom is apprehensive, but then she thinks, well, if I get him out of the house, I can spend time with my boyfriend. So Mark ends up taking a flight to Balladora, and this airport's very well done, very well decorated. The flight person who takes him on the charter plane to Balladora, he's like an Elvis impersonator. It's very over the top, but it is 1998 Fox Kids. I mean, come on. That's how it was. But there's a new added element into the story, and that are these really creepy, brainwashed, like zombie-like people following them around. But anyway, Mark ends up on the island, and pretty much the same discovery in the book. He meets Dr. Hollings, he meets Corrine, and it's revealed that his Aunt Benna has disappeared. She left behind her evidence, but she took with her the secrets of the Balladoran magic. So in this episode, kind of like in the book, where this jungle magic concept was being introduced, this whole island has this magic, the episode touches on it a whole lot better and a whole lot more than the book did, and for that, it's a definite improvement off the bat. But basically, like the book, Mark is pretty much to the point where he's like, okay, I'm gonna have to find my Aunt Benna. She's disappeared, and he's accompanied, of course, like the book, with Kareem, and they don't have the tiger scene in this book, but they do have the in the episode, but they do have the quicksand part, and they're going throughout the jungle, and eventually they run into Aunt Benna. And then the same thing happens that in this episode that it happens in the book, except in the climax, where there's a big change that happens, and once that change happens and the climax is over, the true ending happens. And I'll say this now, the ending definitely does what the book didn't do, and that was tie what happened post climax, and it was fantastic, and it leaves you there. So yeah, for a 2-part episode, I'm going to talk about the strengths on this episode. The cinematography was great. Cinematography was so good in this episode. I cannot stress that enough. This head right here, that's the actual head they used in the episode. Compared to this, you know, I'll hold them up. I'll hold the book up and this. They look really similar. So off the bat, you know, faithfully adapting the covers, and Tim Jacoba's goodness, A+. Mark's room was very well decorated. Not to mention the kid who played Mark. He was so over the top in a good way for Mark, because Mark is so neurotic, but he played it to not be annoying. You know, when he does the whole catchphrase Mark has, Kalia or whatever, it's not all that annoying, but it is a kid's show, mind you, so it's going to have its moments where it's going to make you laugh. But it's a fun episode. It's a fun episode. The girl who played Kareen played Margaret in Stay Out of the Basement. I thought that was a really cool tidbit of information. Ernesto from the book is obviously Elvis impersonator. Some changes here and there, but the main changes that worked better was the ending and having a more cohesive plot than the book. That really helped this episode. Not to mention the cinematography on this was some of the best cinematography, I think, you know, in the show's run. I wouldn't say it's one of the best episodes ever, but it definitely is well made. I'll give it that. But it does have negatives. It does have negatives. It's very cheeseball. It's a very cheeseball episode. Some people might like cheeseball. That's not my flavor. That's not my flavor of Goosebumps. I'm not going to, you know, change or bend my taste for, you know, to give this a better rating than I want to give it, but it was just really, really cheesy. And that's basically the only negative I had. It's just too cheesy for me. Almost, you know, I wouldn't say it's a definite breaker, but it does take it down a considerable amount for me. But anyway, to the rating, what would I rate How I Got My Shrunken Head, the 2-part episode from season 4? From 0 to 5 stars, I would probably rate this a solid 4 out of 5. It's a whole point improvement from the book. I mean, tremendously. It's astounding how much better it is than the book. You know, I thought about it. In the podcast, I gave it a 9, which if I correlate it to percentages now, it would be about a 4.5. But as I thought about it, I think it deserves more of a 4. But it's a great episode. It's definitely above average for the show. It's definitely well made. I think a lot of people would enjoy it. So yeah, that was How I Got My Shrunken Head, the TV episode. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section. Did you love it or did you hate it? I'm curious to hear. And the video after this is going to be my compare and contrast to the book and the episode. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you.